And good morning. As always, it's my pleasure to have Karen Onan in. And Karen is from the East Central Regional Transportation Coordinating Council, which serves Pine, Isanti, Chisago, Kanabec, and Mille Lacs counties. And we've been having conversations a couple times a month now discussing transportation issues in our area, but also branching out into the greater part of Minnesota. And we've had several interview guests. And this morning, Karen, why don't you introduce our guest today?
Well, again, thank you, Robin. I'd like to introduce to you all this morning to Jason Deitz, who is the Director of Marketing at Groome Transportation. Jason, hi. We're so happy to have you here today.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Groome is nationwide transportation provider. Can you tell us a little bit about your history with Groome, and what is Groome Transportation?
I joined Groome Transportation about 3 years ago and helping support the growth and our expansion across the U.S. And Groome is a shared ride airport shuttle. We run on a fixed schedule between regional cities and large hub airports. And we service 13 airports across the U.S. and over 100 U.S. cities.
One of the things Karen and I talked about even before we were coming out to chat today is Groome seems to be more specific for what we've been talking about, discussing using the airport as the main drive behind this. And that sounds about right, Jason?
It does, yeah. That is really what our business is based around. We operate across the U.S. from Orlando to Portland, Oregon, connecting these larger airports to cities that have little to no air service, and they're about 90 to 150 miles away. So they're far enough away that driving and parking is inconvenient and expensive, but they're far enough away that some other ride-sharing services aren't really a good option.
How long has Groome been around, Jason?
Groome was started in 1934, so I think we're coming up on 90 years now. Started running school buses in Richmond, Virginia, which is where we're still headquartered. And then in the 80s kind of started, we did military transport during the wars, and we did some freight transportation. And then in the 80s, we started doing airport service, starting first locally here in Richmond and then expanding to the Atlanta area. And then have really, within the last probably 6 or 7 years, really grown our national footprint, kind of filling that void in these markets where it's been a huge service for people, be able to help them get to the airport and in an affordable way where they don't have to pay for gas or for parking.
How did you get involved with Groome? What is some of your background?
So I've kind of been in marketing my whole career and mostly on like the customer acquisition and retention piece. So kind of as Groome has grown, it's been very operationally focused, where we do a really good job at providing the service, moving people and keeping the vehicle serviced and DOT compliant. But there hadn't been a really big focus on like, how do we let more people know about the service? We had someone write in yesterday that said that they took us from, they started in Prescott, Arizona, to go to the Phoenix airport, and they were going to Madison, Wisconsin, and then on their way back home, they were like, oh, why don't you see if there's another service like Groome that'll get you back to MSP? And she looked it up, and sure enough, she found Groome again. So she was thrilled, and she wrote us in to say that she was really happy, and she knew, she kind of trusted that service, even though she was, over 1,000 miles from home.
I've got to say that one time I was over at Toby's and I saw the Groome shuttle there, and I talked with the driver, and I had no idea that Groome was nationwide. And he was so friendly, like it was a small business that, and he took such pride in what he was doing, and he gave me a schedule. And like I said, I just had no idea that we were all over the country, because it was just so personal, that he was so nice. And you can really recognize Groome's buses, or I don't know what you call them. You call them a van or a shuttle, because they're white with like a lime green accent on them, and they're very noticeable. Yeah. And you can see them at the airport. You'll see them downstairs. I've seen them a lot at the Humphrey Airport traveling, and it's like, why didn't I do that versus go to a hotel and spend the night and wait for their shuttle to finally show up? So moving forward, going to Hinckley for us and picking up the bus or the shuttle, and then can leave your car at Toby's for free. You just need to let them know that your car is there. How convenient is that? And the times that you come through are also quite often during the course of days. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so right now we've got 8 round trips a day that go between Duluth and MSB, and we make those stops along the way, kind of all along that I-35 corridor, where that's kind of our initial schedule since we had to shut down a little bit during COVID, but we reopened several months ago. And so as demand picks up, we'll be continuing to add service to get us back up to closer to where we were pre-COVID. We were around 15 or 16 trips a day at that point. So it's really frequent service, not a lot of wait time that you would need. And that's what we found works well, is if you offer a schedule that runs pretty frequently, people don't want to spend a whole lot of time waiting, whether it's before your flight leaves or especially after it lands. You don't want to wait around a whole lot longer before you make the ride back up north.
So how is the easiest way, Jason, if someone's listening and they're like Karen, they're finally like, why didn't I use Groome? Is the website the best place to go? Phone number? How do people find out specifically more?
Right, exactly, yeah. So all of the information about our service, especially for our Duluth to MSP route, you can find on groomtransportation.com. And if you want to jump right to that page, you can go groomtransportation.com/Duluth, or folks can give us a call at 218-724-4676. And Karen, like what you were mentioning earlier with speaking with one of our drivers, they really are, they're the lifeblood of our service and the front lines, and we do a really thorough job of screening candidates and background checks and drug tests and safety training and all of that. So the folks that we have driving for us are really some of the best out there. They provide excellent customer service. And each one of our operations is run locally. So even though we're a national company, we have a local office in each of our kind of spoke locations, drivers that are all there. So it's really this team atmosphere that people have, and it's less this kind of big corporate entity. We give a lot of leeway to our local managers to run the business locally as best they can, because what we might be running in Duluth would be a lot different than what we would be doing in Sonoma County.
Can you give that phone number one more time?
Of course, yeah. That's 218-724-4676.
Gotcha.
That'll connect you right to our local office in Hermantown.
Groome Transportation, just to clarify, if someone hasn't seen the wording, it actually does have an E on it. So it's Groome, not just leave the E off, and then transportation.
That's a great point. It's not like a bride and groom. It is Groome is the family name. So Mr. Groome Sr. started the business back in 1934, and his grandson, Harold Groome III, is still running the business today.
Something.
That's cool. And again, you said, because I know we're speaking to you from Virginia, where is it based out of? I know you said that at the beginning, Jason.
Correct, yeah. We're still headquartered in Virginia. We kind of have some of our central operations here, some of the finance and accounting and HR and those sorts of things that support the rest of our operation across the country.
Okay. I was just kind of wondering about that. And also, we've talked quite a bit with some other folks that do transportation in our area, and some have volunteer drivers and that kind of thing. They're looking for drivers all the time. In your case, I'm assuming they are paid personnel. Do you have a need for drivers? Give us some information there.
Oh, everybody has a need for drivers.
Yeah.
So we are not an exception there. I wish that we were, but we're always hiring, and especially now. You know, the job market's very competitive, so we are definitely hiring. I know that it may not be the first thing that someone might think of, but, you know, the equipment that we run, especially in Duluth, you don't need a CDL license to run it. Our equipment that we run is usually takes 11 to 14 passengers, so no CDL is required for that. And then our drivers tend to make pretty good tips on top of that. So if it's someone who enjoys driving and enjoys interacting with people, then it's a really great option. I think we see a good number of retirees find that this is a good job that they like to come and do. And we also have kind of the spectrum of people who, you know, some people make a career out of this, and kind of, since Groome is a bigger company now, we've had people start as drivers and, you know, work their way up to regional managers and, you know, work out of the corporate office. And so it's been a really good opportunity being here and kind of seeing how that works.
Can any of your shuttles accommodate a wheelchair?
Absolutely, yeah. So we're completely ADA compliant. So if someone's making a reservation, all they need to do is let us know, and we'll make sure that they're assigned to a vehicle that's able to handle that.
Nice. And you can take all the luggage that I bring and...
Oh, yeah. You know, there's a lot of the airlines, you kind of get nickeled and dimed a little bit for change fees or luggage and all of that kind of stuff, and we like to keep it very simple. So it's a flat fee to ride the shuttle, and you get, you know, 2 free bags with that. And, you know, if your flight's late, you need to change to like a later shuttle, or, you know, sometimes with the situation with airlines now, they're changing flights a little bit. All you need to do is give us a call, and we're happy to move you to another time where we have availability. So we're the bright spot in a lot of people's travel day. They're able to easily make changes or take a nap on the shuttle on the way before or after their flight. We like to be able to do that.
Does a person need to plan in advance? They can't just show up at, let's say, Toby's and say, I want to get on the bus and go down to the airport. Do they need to pre-plan that with you?
We do recommend that, yes, especially for some of the stops along the way. Now, if someone were to show up in our main office in Hermantown without a reservation, more than likely you'll be able to hop on the shuttle then. But we do recommend making a reservation in advance. If we don't have someone that's scheduled to get picked up at Toby's, we won't get off the exit
Gotcha.
To make that stop.
Okay.
So,
and then how does a person pay for their fare?
Really, almost any way you want to. We don't accept cryptocurrency or anything yet, but credit card. If you want to come into the office and pay by cash or check, then that's perfectly fine too. But most folks either pay over the phone or pay online with a credit card.
So when they make the reservation, so to speak, they pay then?
Exactly. Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. How does the driver know that you paid then? They must have a roster. They somehow that way?
They do. Yes, the driver has a trip manifest, and they know everyone who's supposed to be on the trip. And they know where they're supposed to be picked up, and they know their flight information, so we know which terminal or which gate to drop you off at, and where you'll be picked up. So at Humphrey, there's the two different terminals. We have pickup spots at each one, so you don't have to make your way over to Terminal 2 if you're into Terminal 1.
Can you do the round trip all at one time, or do you make it two separate, let's say, appointments?
You can. When you're making a reservation, you have the option to really just hit this button that says, I want to book a round trip at this point. We'll pre-populate the information. All you need to do is give us your return trip details, the date and time that you're coming back. The traveler will put in what time their flight is, and our system looks at our schedule and makes sure we get you to the airport 2 hours ahead of time, looks at if it's a domestic or international flight to see if it's international. We'll get you there a little bit earlier. So we'll kind of automatically put you on the trip that'll get you to the airport in time to make your flight.
Karen, because you're with, of course, the East Central Regional Transit, but this covers the whole state of Minnesota, how important is it to have something like this available under this heading? Because I know you guys are trying to get Groome and all these to be kind of a huge network that everybody can go to one-stop shop. This has got to be a big deal here.
This is all really important. And I'm really glad, Jason, that we've had a chance to talk about this, because I don't think a lot of people know about what Groome does and how big you are and how well put together this whole system is. And so I'm just thrilled to have you part of this, and then getting the mapping system all put together so a person can go and see where you go. And, another thing I want to make sure of is that I have some of your maybe even digital versions of your schedule on our website, so people can go there even and have a link to your site, but also have your information on my site. So, and I'm just going to put a little plug in there, is eastcentraltransit.com. Let's get it together, and all that information is very easy to find.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, Karen. I think, as much as we can give people the information to know what kind of services are out there to connect them to the places that they want to go, we 100% support that mission.
Jason, are there any future plans that you have? Are you planning on getting all electric shuttles, or what are any of the things that Groome is thinking about doing in the future?
So one of the things that we do now is that almost our entire fleet runs off of propane fuel, so it's a lot cleaner burning than gasoline. It's just a much better alternative for us. So in addition to sharing a ride with some other folks that are going to the airport and not driving an individual car, you're also taking a mode of transportation that's better for the environment. So that's been important for us to be able to do our part, help reduce the wear and tear on the highways for people sharing a ride to the airport. Some of the electric vehicles, definitely a space that we're keeping our eye on. In the size of vehicles that we're running right now, they really haven't made the advances for that to be kind of a mass production thing yet. And really for going from Duluth to Minneapolis, that's really pushing the range on some of the electric vehicles. Certainly something that we keep an eye on, and something that would mesh with our mission of being a sustainable transportation company. It's certainly important.
Could you, one more time, Jason, give us the website and your phone number, and then I'm going to have Karen again give her information so people have that at hand.
Absolutely. It's GroomeTransportation.com, and it's Groome with an E, Groome. And you can reach us at 218-724-4676.
And if somebody would be interested in being a driver, that information's on there as well?
Exactly, yeah. You can head to the website and click on the employment link in the header or the footer, or just give our office a call. We'll patch those phone calls right through to management.
Sounds good. And again, Karen, what is the one-stop shop that we keep touting now?
EastCentralTransit.com, and my phone number is 320-679-4065, extension 32. Yeah, I'm just thrilled to have had the opportunity to talk to you, Jason. Thank you so very much for coming on the air with us.
Well, this was my pleasure. Thank you both very much.
Absolutely, Jason. And this update has been sponsored in part by our friends at MnDOT.